Shrink the Nation is a podcast for thoughtful, informed adults, preferably with a pour in hand. The views and opinions expressed on the show are those of the hosts and guests only and do not reflect the views of any employers, institutions, licensing boards, government agencies, bourbon distilleries, or family members, especially our family members. They've asked us to be very clear about that. This show is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing said here should be taken as medical, psychiatric, legal, or professional advice. If you're in crisis, call a professional. If you're mad at something we said, we suggest journaling or emailing us with civility. We're here to challenge ideas, not diagnose strangers. We're clinicians, not your clinicians, and we have the bourbon to prove it. Let's go. All right. Welcome back to Shrink the Nation. Today, America's giving us a psychological buffet. We are arguing over chain of command semantics to avoid admitting what a second strike actually was. The Department of Transportation is trying to legislate pajamas like they're a gateway drug. And AI is now fully capable of generating fake politicians, fake voices, and, according to new research, fake conversations that can change your vote. If this country had a therapist, they'd be charging danger pay. Let's pour a drink. Let's get this one going, Robbie. I'm David. I got my 20 plus in the military, board certified psychiatrist. Today, enjoying a nice tin cup again, cut with Rocky Mountain water, although I'm not sure how much it's cut. And it's only 80 proof. Going down pretty smoothly.
Personally, I think that's the sweet spot. Beyond that, there's a few that get like the one I'm doing this evening can get a little higher than that. But for a sipping bourbon, it's good.
Well, I'm sipping, I'm enjoying. So,
Yeah. Hey, it's Rob, 25 or 26 years in psychiatry, 30 years in the military. I want to highlight and stomp the fact that I am not representing any branch of the military and or any governmental agency. I am purely a independent citizen and civilian in this role.
way to cover your assets before we get started.
It's in keeping with our first topic today is that I think we're all issued with a cover your ass memo now when you join the military, apparently.
Or at least a non-disclosure agreement. All right, so our first four today, we're calling this moral displacement and the second strike. This coverage is coming from multiple outlets and been circulating pretty much the last few months. But in the aftermath of the confirmed second strike, national debate has zeroed in on procedural ambiguity. Who gave which order? Who interpreted what? And whether SecDef, JSOC, or Admiral Bradley technically crossed the line. The public conversation has become a maze of chain of command hair splitting. It's a striking example of moral displacement when a nation fixates on bureaucratic fog to avoid staring directly at the horror. Instead of confronting the reality of we executed survivors, the psyche retreats into process semantics and plausible deniability. That's where I'm going to start. But again, speaking as a civilian, and only as a civilian.
With all the rights accorded to you therein of your First Amendment right, please exercise it.
So what do you think, Robbie? Are we avoiding eye contact with reality?
I'm incensed by this one, actually. This one, most of the time I can keep a sense of humor about most of these things and play the violin while Rome burns and be contented. This one really gets me at my core, actually. And the funny thing is that, let's assume that I have spent quite a bit of time in the military, even though right now I'm speaking as a civilian that has full constitutional First Amendment rights. Just to be clear, just in case, every time one deploys, one has to go through a LOAC, Laws of Armed Conflict briefing. And ironically, one of the elements that they use, an example they use for when you render aid versus continue combat, and shipwrecked is actually one of them. You do not attack the shipwrecked. One can debate the validity of attacking these boats that may or may not, and likely are, to not dance around it, they likely are conveying illicit substances. One can debate whether transporting illegal substances is a capital offense. One can debate extrajudiciary.
Bravo.
Nicely done. One can debate those things, but the moment of that first strike, and in those 41 minutes following, in which these two humans were struggling in the water as shipwrecked individuals, it is difficult for me. And I've heard all the wrangling, I've heard all the debate. One side say it's justified, and I've heard the other side. But it is very difficult for me to justify sending in another missile for the express purpose of ending the existence of these two individuals. It angers me. One of the reasons, and this is just something, as in the line of work that I do and the places that I've done it, when a soldier kills in the line of duty, they are still human, because as it turns out, taking a life is actually ridiculously easy. The United States Army, Marine Corps, Air Force, Navy train personnel well. It's muscle memory, pop up targets, respond to contact. And when a target presents itself and your rifle goes to shoulder and you flip off the safety and you pull the trigger as you have been trained to do, it is not what folks would imagine in a movie. They can play up this sort of moral moment in which your morals are warring with themselves. In reality, it happens in less than a second. There's very little thought associated with it. And then you have to walk away knowing that you just ended the life of somebody who once was a bouncing baby boy on mama's knee. The question that soldiers frequently have is, how do I know I can turn this off? I realize now that I can kill and that it's not hard. What's hard to do is to live with killing. So that anybody could see these two individuals struggling in the water and then order in another strike. It's a struggle for me not to be angry about, actually.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Not great podcasting, unfortunately. The reason that I think having a discussion about this here in a place where we could talk about more of the psychology of this is that right now, in at least the last several days, the discussions about this have been about what was the order that was given, who gave the order, was that a justified order, what was the legality of that. And I think what that's doing, and from a psychological perspective, is something that we call moral displacement. What we're doing is we're willing to do almost anything to avoid confronting the moral injury that comes from something that we've done that is wrong. And the reality is, regardless of who gave the order, whether it was justified or anything else, is that from the military's own rules of engagement in war, clearly states that people clinging to the side of a shipwreck should not be targets. And so when that occurs, it's just something that is wrong. What we're doing is we're sort of bypassing that, just moving ourselves psychologically past the reality of that. I always want to remind anybody that everybody is the protagonist of their own life. And when we're in a war situation, talking about the arming and use of force, taking a life, it is simple. It is easy. It is something that can be done in the pulling of a trigger. But you're not just ending some random NPC in a video game. This is a human who had lived 365 days, 24 hours a day for however many years of a life. And that's a big deal. That's not nothing.
It is. And this is the least funny thing that I will ever say on this podcast. At least God, I hope so. But, part of me is incensed, having served in war zones, served with real legit heroes. As it turns out, the act of putting on a uniform in and of itself, going to basic training, does not make you a hero, even though for various reasons it's portrayed that way. It doesn't. But what it does do is put you in a position to be one. It gives you the opportunity to be one. And many, many moons ago, I treated a young man who was a member of a hunter-killer team. So during the phase in Iraq, when we had fully transitioned over to COIN operations, COIN stands for counterinsurgency, and we were trying to be much more surgical with our approach. We developed these hunter-killer teams that would go out, and it was a spotter and a sniper. They'd go out and they'd set up in certain zones that had a high probability to draw individuals who were planting IEDs. So that's what they were out there to do. They were to identify folks who were installing IEDs along certain routes, and they were taking them out. They would go out on 72-hour missions, roughly, and they would just sit and they would wait. And then certainly if someone came along that was engaged in planting an IED, they would take them out. And this young kid, maybe 24 years old, at least when I knew him. So from now until forever, he's 24, even though now he's probably 45 35 or whatever. Met him at a dining facility, DFAC. He looked pretty rough, and I encouraged him to come on over and see me. And he had 37 kills. He was at the point where he described it. He said, as he was looking through his scope on these individuals, that he got to the point where he would envision them as being infants, and he would envision them as being toddlers, and he would envision them with a ball. They were all men. He got to the point where he could not pull a trigger, and it rendered him mission incapable, and he took quite a lot of heat for that, but he had certainly done his job. Ultimately, the fact that he could maintain empathy, and that empathy grew actually over time. Initially it was a expert engaging in what they were trained to do. Anybody who's been trained to do something, they want to do it. They want to do their job. So it started out with that, and there was a certain excitement to it. And then he identified he was good at it. So there was some pride to it. He got a lot of kudos for his success. A hell of a shot, as it turns out. And then it became something else. And when I see these things, ostensibly the people in that room should have been there, should have done this. And I know they have. And I'm not besmirching their history, what they've done for the country. What I am calling into question, though, is that if you watch on video for 41 minutes, two human beings struggling in the water after having had the boat blown up, and you call in a second strike on two folks who have no ability to defend themselves, no ability to strike us, which are some of the requirements from the law of armed conflict, and still call in that strike, I am wondering what the dynamic is that drives that. And I'm thinking about a research study done in the 60s on looking at, actually with Germans in mind. They were wondering how do normal people do evil things. Milgram. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, actually, I guess you were alluding to it, but this was exactly what I was thinking about as well. Yeah.
Please regale our tens. I've said way too many words, and I'm feeling a little depressed right now. Maybe a touch of PTSD of my own right. So I might have to crawl into a hole here for a moment and gather myself. Please.
So the Milgram experiments, it was conducted at Yale, I believe, 1960s, but it was the shock experiment is what
Yes.
we're referring to. And so it was testing obedience to authority, where the participants were instructed to administer increasingly severe electrical shocks to another person who was actually an actor, as they answered questions incorrectly. They couldn't see the person, as far as I'm aware, but what they could do is they could hear them scream after administering the shocks. And what they were told was that each shock was like more and more intense after they answered questions incorrectly. And what they found was that people are more likely to commit these atrocities when orders are vague, but the violence was implied. The authority figure signaling the approval, and then ambiguity filling in the rest. It wasn't that they were seeing it happen. It was just that they heard it. Now, was somebody actually getting shocked? No. But did they know that? No. They were kept shocking them because it was pleasing the person who was sitting there. Yep, keep going. And it would just
Yeah.
crank up the amount of electricity each time.
And they were distressed. The folks that were pushing the button were very distressed. It wasn't that they were amoral. It wasn't that they were robots. They were distressed, but the authority frame placed it as harm is necessary. This is necessary. And I think one of the phrases that the authority figure had to say, just like there was like four things they could say, but the experiment must go on. And I see these videos on TV of this boat getting a second strike, and I think someone in that room went, the experiment must go on.
Yeah. What it brings you to, from our perspective, is that, gosh, whoever gave an order is so irrelevant. Ambiguity of an order, it was filling in that gap of, well, this is what they want. Narco terrorists should die, should be killed, even to the point where we're ignoring our own rules of engagement to do it. We're pleasing the authority.
And that's the other part of it. So from the Milgram research, it really does say that when responsibility is diffuse, ordinary people cross moral boundaries believing that someone else holds the moral weight. I'm watching this play out. I'm watching how nobody wants to take responsibility. Everybody's covering their ass. I'm noticing the fact that they're setting up a straw man over and over again, which is narco-terrorist, narco-terrorist, narco-terrorist.
Yeah.
A good portion of our population here's narco-terrorist, thinks they deserved it. They had it coming. I'm not even going to debate that. I'm just going to say that that's not the debate. We can debate whether we're going to kill drug traffickers. That's a separate debate. What we're really talking about is the thing that separates the United States military from random killers. And what separates us is that we have a code, an ethos, rules that govern us. We're not indiscriminate killers. That's not our job. Our job is to be professional warriors. And there's a huge difference there. The fact that however this is coming out, the commander's intent, and from whatever level, whether it's SecDef, SecWar down, or POTUS down, the intent somehow was ambiguous enough that it ended up, and this happens at lower levels, we call it a clusterfuck.
Probably Foxtrot.
Yeah. Anytime you get a bunch of majors and lieutenant colonels together, that it's a clusterfuck. At the general level, they call it a star cluster. So, when you have multiple stars around, and what ends up happening is the senior ranking person says something. And this happened a few years ago. We had a commanding general who said, we have to be able to fight within 24 hours. Now, his point was we all need to be ready to fight. Our units need to be ready. Our vehicles need to be ready. We need to be personally ready. We need to be fit. That was his intent. By the time it got down to the soldier level, it had become everyone in this room needs to be able to leave within 24 hours. And it created some problems. And then the general had to come back. During one of my deployments, I commanded a COVID mission some years ago. And that particular general came to visit. Amazing man. I mean, really high energy, smart, really engaged individual. And he was also fun to joke with. So I had a good time with him. But then I busted his balls a little bit about that. And he's like, yeah, that took a turn.
Another big piece of it is the dehumanizing language of labeling somebody a narco-terrorist. We're seeing this from the senators, which is really concerning. Senator Tom Cotton coming back and saying, we kill other terrorists, therefore killing narco-terrorists is completely justified.
Yeah.
Now, what's happening in that is labeling somebody as subhuman. You're taking away any moral reasoning, justifying these extreme measures that are happening, and essentially reframing these killings as some sort of cleansing. You're just taking away that humanity from the person who is standing there.
Well, and it's a rhetorical tool. So when you can't argue the actual facts of a thing, you argue to the left or the right of it. And that's what they're doing. They're arguing to the left of this in that narco-terrorists deserve to die. That's not the question. The question is the United States military, must they follow their own laws of armed conflict? That's the question, not whether narco-terrorists need to die. And apparently we're not entirely sure on this one. I am. They're not.
Really the red herring, I think it's twofold. One, just having an argument about the wrong thing completely, which is kind of what we started with, is why are we having a conversation about this process when the reality is we committed a war crime by our own definition, not anything else, but by the book written by the Pentagon of this is what you do not engage in during a war. And now we're talking about process. We're talking about policy. We're talking about labels. Now, the other aspect of that, which I find utterly fascinating and a common thread, is that we start to get into the semantics of these topics. In doing so, we sort of bypass the typical checks and balances that we do in our own brains with earlier facts in the case. Right now, we're arguing about the potential for a war crime, and we've completely leaped over whether we were justified in the first strike, right? Like we've completely ignored the legality, the justification, whether we should even be in a conflict, whether anybody wants to be in any kind of war with Venezuela, and really what the hell we're doing fighting this war on drugs that we're calling fentanyl, when by all accounts, it seems to be completely cocaine, while at the same time pardoning somebody who was convicted of trafficking 400 tons, an unfathomable amount, a mountain of cocaine into our country. And so we leapfrog those checks and balances in our own brain and just sort of assume that all that is okay so that we can argue what we think is the more egregious of the things, when in reality, all of it's ridiculous, isn't it?
We have created so much cognitive dissonance that it becomes almost a necessity to latch onto something that makes sense. Kill the drug dealers, kill them all. It's potentially debatable. I mean, potentially. I personally don't think it's a capital crime, but I get where we could discuss that, where level heads could discuss whether this is a capital crime, and we could put it in the context of drug overdoses and all that. But you're absolutely right. What kills people is fentanyl. Fentanyl comes from China. China, it's routed mostly directly, either shipped to the United States via FedEx and UPS, oddly enough, but that's the reality of it, or it's coming through Mexico. Cocaine is not causing drug overdoses, folks. It can cause lots of medical problems, no doubt, but it is not killing people in mass numbers. So making the argument we are executing murderers doesn't really fit. But again, I could accept a debate on that. What I cannot accept is the United States military engaged in a fundamental police action.
But this is what I'm getting at, though, Robbie, is not so much even debate on the topic, right? It's the fact that we skip over the debate because we jump directly to the more egregious of the things, and we've accepted the entirety of the statement as just a reality without even questioning the validity of it to begin with. And I'll be honest, this is what I think, beyond shamelessness, I do really think this is probably one of Donald Trump's greatest superpowers, is to inject false realities into statements by getting people to debate a completely separate topic based off of something that he says that just is so completely detached from reality when he says it. It's like saying we are killing narco terrorists who are killing people in the United States. So we double tapped this, and we are so focused on the double tap that we ignore the audacity of the rest of the statement. Why are we hiding the fact that Venezuela has the deepest oil reserves in the entire planet? More than Saudi Arabia, more than anywhere else. I mean, if there's any reason to be engaged in Venezuela, it's oil. So to blow up 20 boats in the Caribbean, nowhere near the United States, does nothing but enrich the bottom line of anybody. The laws of economics would say reduce the supply, increase the demand, jack up the prices. All we're doing is making cocaine more expensive in the United States. This is not stopping cocaine. This is doing nothing. This is a ridiculous war. But we're fighting about two people who we clearly knew were not a threat because they were not trafficking fentanyl, which is the thing we're claiming. It's ridiculous. It's crazy.
Hey, to our tens of listeners, you're not crazy. This is nuts. It's distressing. And it's not surprising to me that a couple of folks that spend the better part of their lives in military circles feel a little incensed in this, because I feel like it is demeaning the military. One of the things that I have always appreciated about being in the military is that crazy little words that don't matter much in the general public, like honor and duty, have always mattered when I'm in uniform. And this doesn't feel honorable, and it doesn't comport with duty. It's distressing. It's really distressing. And you know what we need to do? Move to something funny, because if I tell one more PTSD story, we may lose some of our tens of listeners. We'll be down to fives of listeners, and that would suck.
Well, let's close this one out. We'll move on. You know, I have this strange feeling, Robbie, that this is not the end of this, unfortunately.
No, not at all. And I have to admit, I have gotten a weird joy out of watching the cover your ass approach, and how the statements even that people are making make me smile, because it's clearly this statement which they're trying to appear one way, but what they're saying is it was really someone else's decision. And, you know, Harry S. Truman needs to come back and remind everybody that the buck stops somewhere. This would be the equivalent of me blaming one of my lieutenants for something that happened in the brigade. Anyway, let's do something funny.
Yeah. Okay. So for our second pour, now, before we get fully into it, into this Department of Transportation pajama crisis, I do want to acknowledge that Rob has been warning America about pajama wearing for years, and this is basically his Vietnam. So
it is. It really is.
Be prepared.
Yeah. You guys are going to approach this like it's funny. I'm approaching it like well, hell yeah, this is way too long in coming.
The DOT pajama uprising and the transportation competence crisis. So, the Department of Transportation, via spokesperson Sean Duffy of the Real World Boston and a special road rules challenge of some sort, recently advised Americans to dress with respect at airports, singling out pajamas and slippers as unacceptable. Sounds like somebody I know. Bed to airport outfits being what he said. Almost instantly, travelers responded with malicious compliance. Flannel pants, robes, bunny slippers, and full hashtag pajama resistance across social media. What started as a dress code scolding became a national referendum on respect, frustration with air travel, and the widening gap between public expectations and institutional competence. Full disclosure, I had prepared just the meanest digs at Sean Real World Duffy.
Who is that?
Okay, so Sean Duffy has actually had a pretty impressive career post Real World. He served as the Attorney General, who also served as a congressman for about 9 years.
You're kidding me.
No, he actually ran during the Tea Party wave, very flanneled up, lumberjacky, everyman, kind of non-coastal elite political outsider perspective. So career-wise has politically been fairly impressive. Now, he retired in 2019 from Congress, citing some issues with his family. So, nothing really honestly outside of the norm there. His credentials for a Department of Transportation secretary don't necessarily line up quite as tightly as most. His political career, he was a congressperson, didn't do a whole lot. And again, ran off of this. I wear flannels and jeans and I have an axe. Like he would literally go to like lumberjack competitions and like split wood and shit. So what's interesting about it is more that this is the same guy who now is telling people stop wearing pajamas at the airport. The complete outsider, non-coastal elite is now telling people how to dress. And unsurprisingly, it's not going over so well.
No, I just pulled him up. I don't recognize him from his reality TV days, but
being that you weren't a teenage girl in
Yeah.
the late 90s, early 2000s, that's not surprising.
I am a little embarrassed that I didn't realize he was our Secretary of Transportation.
I mean, that's a highly publicized position.
Well, if we got a list of all the secretaries of the U.S. executive branch, I think I would probably be surprised by most of them.
Yeah.
I'm definitely surprised by some of the major ones, and I question their background. And in his case, all I can say is what qualifies him to do this job?
Road rules. He was on road rules. He's definitely flown on planes before. So I think
that does it. That's the qualifier. If you have flown on a plane, you can be the Secretary of Transportation.
Exactly.
Oh, all right. Well, it's important to set the bar. This is where the bar lives. You want to go over the bar, but now we know where the bar is. Having transported yourself from one point to the other on an.
He was also on road rules. He started off on the Real World.
Well, let's face it. That's probably his biggest qualification is that he's been on TV and he has some celebrity.
No. He actually, like I said, he was elected to Congress in 2010 and he represented Wisconsin's 7th District.
Mm-hmm.
He was a district attorney for Ashland County, Wisconsin, and worked as a special prosecutor from 2002.
Okay. All right.
He
all right.
He actually leveraged a lot of that like everyman image into his political career, which is why this is so interesting to then stand before everyone in a expensive suit and say, "Stop dressing so slovenly at the airport, you mooks."
We need to go back to the 1950s. It should be suits and dresses. That's what it should be. Here's the reality: is that I'm 100% for him. I completely concur.
Rob, too, has been on a plane.
Yeah, I've been on a plane, and if I never see another person wearing freaking pajamas and slippers on a public space, it might be too soon. I'm all over the place politically, folks. On this one, I am falling firmly in the MAGA party.
Well, congratulations, Rob. You're now the moral backbone of federal transportation policy.
I'm with him.
I'd say maybe you're the next Secretary of the Department of Transportation. I'd say go for it.
I
You've
think
flown
so.
on planes, right? Do you own a
I
drone
well,
by any chance?
equally qualified.
Yeah. You can set your drone out in the lawn and yell, "Clear prop!" And I'd say you're good. It just I really this one I probably brought up.
What's the point to tell people what to wear? I don't
I don't, you
understand.
do it. You do it. You get all pissed off at people wearing pajamas in public. Now, granted, you've never done it in a press conference and meant it. I mean, to do that straight faced is pretty.
So, when I talk about it, it's shamelessness. There's a social contract, people. The comedian, Jim Jeffries, who I recommend, he has this great skit about we live in a society and it has rules. And in that society that has rules, there's certain rules when you get on an airplane and, he's talking about the middle seat and the left and right seat and how it's supposed to go. And it's funny because anyone's ridden on a plane. Sorry, my Appalachia sometimes gets in the way. Ridden on a plane has had these thoughts. And yeah, it is annoying to me when somebody takes their shoes off or somebody is dressed as if they're going to bed so they can get on a plane and fly for 2 hours. That does frustrate me probably more than it should. I mean, it shows my age. It makes me a grouchy old man. I don't know.
Who cares if people want to be
But
comfortable on a
what
plane?
prompted this?
It was something to do with the Thanksgiving travel. I'm not sure why. I don't know why you would say that in a press conference. I'm not sure why that would be any of his damn business. I don't know why it's any of your damn business. If, like, the truth is, flying on a plane, it's not the 1950s. It's not luxurious. Airlines are making airline seats smaller. Some of them are making them not lean back. They're trying to cram as many people on as possible. It's a Greyhound in the sky. It's not a comfortable place to be. It's somehow miserably cold and hot at the same time. It's like flying around in a fucking microwave. It's not necessarily a pleasant experience. So I can totally see why somebody who has literally nothing to do afterwards would be glad to wear pajamas. Now, I've been stuck in enough airports for hours and hours and hours, even for days, that, yeah, be comfortable. You might as well be, because it's not going to be a comfortable ride. If you're wearing your best bib and tucker on a plane, it's just going to smell like swamp ass anyway, as you're sitting in somebody else's crumbs from the last flight. You might as well put on some pajamas, be comfortable, and get to your next location as you sit and wait and hear whatever story they have for you why you can't board the plane. My most recent one was that, well, this plane was coming in internationally, so they had to do extra checks. Oh, you didn't fucking know that when you booked this fucking flight? I didn't plan for this to be the plane. You did. And somehow you decided that this plane could be turned over in 12 seconds. When in reality, no, it couldn't. And so, of course, our flight was super delayed and 27 people on it missed their next flight.
And this is reminding me a brief story to our tens of listeners because I like to tell them. So I very recently taken a very long trans-Pacific flight. And I was automatically seated at a certain spot, and I was given the option of paying personally out of my pocket to upgrade that spot. And I had certain limited options. And I chose this option that looked perfect. There was like an empty area in front of me that it was like, oh, this is going to be great. Leg room, this is worth it. So I paid the, I don't know, $150, whatever it was. And as it turns out, on a long flight like that, people who are stuck sitting look for an open area to do stretches. And I had these elderly individuals doing freaking Tai Chi right in front of me, doing full on bend overs right in my face. And it was uncomfortable. And the best part of this actually was that also this had a drop down seat for the flight attendant. And we were getting ready to land after a very long flight. And the lady who was sitting across the aisle from me as we were landing bolted to the bathroom as we're landing. And the flight attendant starts to freak out. Like, you can't do this. She goes to the restroom to vomit, the lady that bolted. As she's vomiting, we all hear her vomiting, and the flight attendant starts to vomit into a bag. And this is 3 feet in front of me as I'm watching all this going on. And as she starts to vomit, the lady to my right starts to vomit. And I remembered that scene from Stand By Me with the blueberries where everybody vomits.
Money well spent, Rob.
I didn't vomit, but I definitely did not upgrade my seat, kept flying on the long flight back. Did not.
The only thing I want to add, This is a public service announcement, is for those of you deplaning, can we all just agree to get off the goddamn plane? If you were standing and you have your bag, just walk off the plane. If you are not standing and you don't have your bag and there are people behind you who have their bag and are ready to go, let them go. I promise you, 3 seconds, there will be a lull. Grab your bag, get off. But holding up 200 people to get off the plane because you decided not to get up to get your bag until there was nobody in front of you, well, that makes me want to stab you in the face. Anyway.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that one.
Hey, it's Rob from Shrink the Nation. As my friend David so eloquently states at the beginning of the show, we are clinicians, but we're not your clinician. We love to joke around and dive into the tough topics, but there's something really important we need to say. If you're struggling with your mental health or facing substance use issues, we want you to know you're not alone. We have dedicated our professional careers to mental health, and we care deeply about it. It's okay to ask for help. Reaching out to a professional in your area could be the first step toward feeling better. Don't wait. There's support out there, and it works. Please take that first step. We want you to be well. Now let's get back to the show. Oh, and don't tell David I said he was eloquent. He'll be insufferable.
All right, so last topic, third pour. We've covered moral fog, moral fiber. Let's end with the thing that's going to break our brains in 2026. AI disinformation and chatbot engineered conviction. Election officials warn that deepfakes, synthetic political voices, fake robocalls, and AI generated hoaxes are exploding heading into 2026. And the Cornell Gizmodo study shows chatbots can shift political opinions by about 10 percentage points, even persuading voters who actively disliked the candidate. So, yay, good deal. Chatbots are now convincing people to switch their votes.
I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. Everyone needs to get off social media immediately. It's the only way to maintain your sanity and maintain your ability to think independently. Just get off of it. Just delete your Facebook, delete your TikTok, delete your Instagram. Just get off of it. It's going to kill all of us. It is going to ruin civilization as we know it. Now, everyone will now ignore me. And probably as I'm talking, someone's listening to this as they scroll TikTok or Instagram or whatever. This does not necessarily surprise me. That 10% felt like a gut punch, actually, but it doesn't surprise me. And it does highlight something that we're at a point. And again, I've said this in the past. I will say it again right here, right now to our tens of listeners, our adoring fans that in my mind, 50 years from now, people are not going to look back and be that very interested in the politics of right now. It will be a footnote. They'll talk about it and we'll move forward because that's how history works. What I think will be interesting to most people is that this is the moment in time in which the information and the technology that we're interacting with far exceeds our psychological ability to manage it. And I think that's the key to this moment, that right now, the tools that have been developed, the things that we have become addicted to, and the AI ability to engage with us, to give us what we want or give us this mass production. I'll use my son for an example. So he came to me the other day and he said, have you heard about, and I am in no way endorsing the death of Charlie Kirk, just getting that out there right up front, not saying it was a good thing. It was a terrible thing. Nobody should die for speaking in public. But he came to me and he said, have you heard that Charlie Kirk's widow is pregnant? And I said, no, I have not heard that. And if it's true, that's tragic. That's really sad. And he's like, well, she's 8 weeks pregnant. And he died 12 weeks ago. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, and they think it's JD Vance's baby. And I'm like, you've been getting your news off of TikTok again, haven't you? And he said, yeah, but I heard it like 30 times today. And I'm like, yeah, so if you say something 30 times, it makes it more true than the first time, right? And he's like, well, if 30 different people say it, it must be true. And I'm like, 30 lies told 30 times by 30 different people are still a lie, aren't they? And, I closed it with, hey, stop getting your news off TikTok. And he said, hey, I can't help it. So that's where we stand right now. That's the world.
No, and it is absolutely true that not
Charlie Kirk's
the
wife is
news.
pregnant.
No, that when people keep hearing the same thing over and over and over again, they will believe it. It becomes more
Absolutely.
real to them. The scary thing
And we've
here,
talked about that.
we absolutely have. Go back to the episode we talked about it. The scary thing here is that it seems as though chatbots have a level of believability and authority that rises even higher than, I don't know why I wouldn't, but it's rising higher than the dipshit on TikTok who is making up some crazy ass story that is then being repeated 30 times. The problem with that is that where does AI get its information but from this ridiculous written record that is no more real? And what they found was that in this study was that people were more likely to change their vote for somebody when the chatbot was giving more of a fact-based approach. But, and this is the caveat, was that the facts that it was providing weren't necessarily accurate. It was hallucinating as it was providing the quote unquote facts. And so people are struggling to delineate the difference between what's real and fake, especially when it's given it to them by a chatbot. And they are then being persuaded by the chatbot to then change or to formulate their own opinions on who they should vote for. It's a big, hairy deal. I mean, it's scary. It's terrifying.
I
This is,
agree.
maybe it's not going to be the next election, but it will be the one after that. Absolutely. The
It'll be the
people that are
next
going to win.
3 years. In 3
Yeah, it's
years,
absolutely.
given the speed with which AI is advancing, 3 years from now, it absolutely will make the difference in the next election.
No, of course, and only because the next election after is only going to be in 3 years. Like, if there was a larger election sooner, it would probably take place sooner. That is how fast this is happening. And so, yeah, people are going to be listening to what a chatbot says, even if it's wrong, even if it's making it up, and even if it is being directed to tell people the wrong things. We already know the algorithm is telling you what you want to hear. It's operating off of that confirmation bias. This is the version of this person that I want to see. And as long as that person is willing to say everything, then they're going to get the version they need to hear to be persuaded. Well, take that a step further and take the humans out of it. We don't need the humans now. Just to have the chatbot explain to you why this candidate is the best candidate, and we're good. We're done. I'm depressed now. So
It's
more tin cup.
yeah, no doubt. Just go straight to the bottle, man. Don't even bother pouring. Yeah, exactly. It's a waste of your time. One, it makes me nostalgic for 2010 when I used to bemoan the impact of 24-hour news channels that have clearly skewed to certain political perspectives. That was infantile compared to what can be accomplished with AI now. And it's frightening because you don't even know who is instigating that chatbot to go out there and talk to people. The second thing it makes me think of is recently, for the first time in a long time, I actually was proud. I don't know if that's the right word, but I felt good about a choice that X, or the former Twitter, they implemented a new process in which they show what country these accounts come from. And it turns out a great number of the most popular MAGA accounts are coming from countries outside of the United States. And, are they chatbot driven? Probably. It's the only way I could imagine the prolific nature of what they're doing. That's the only way I can imagine them accomplishing it. But the world as we know it, on a day-to-day basis. And for our tens of listeners, we all know this, that the folks you interact with, the way you interact with them, how you perceive them, how often has something happened in which you were like, oh my gosh, this was utterly not what I expected from this individual. They were different than what I thought. That's normal. That is a normal human experience, is that we project a persona to the world. And that persona is not always 100% who we are. So behind closed doors, what we do, how we act, etc., is slightly different. On the internet, it is magnified by, I don't know, a factor of about 6, maybe. And it's blind. You can't see this person. You can't assess their facial expressions for honesty, etc., which is what we've always counted on as humans to do. That when I come to you and tell you a story, you're watching me, and whether you know it or not, you're assessing my facial expressions, and that factors into the story. And whether you believe the story or not, on the internet, you don't have that. You have text. Or now, actually, I just watched something on TV about TikTok videos that are completely AI generated. And what they're doing is actually finding faces randomly from TikTok, in which they then take that face and make it an AI generated thing and present something. And it ends up being, because now we can actually see the face, it's even harder. And our only option, folks, stop watching TikTok. Get away from TikTok. Get away from Facebook. Stop it. Just delete your accounts. I swear you'll be happier. The research is really clear on this, that in 1 week after deleting, doing away with, stepping away from your social media, you will be a happier human. You will feel better. You will be less anxious. You will be less depressed. And it is really solid research that supports this. Get away from it. Do away from it. Just delete it from your life. Rely on newspapers and magazines and to some degree, TV news.
I feel like your advice there would feel better if it didn't come after the whole get rid of pajamas in public thing from you.
Yeah.
It would just hold more water.
Well, here I am on an internet-driven medium telling people to get off the goddamn internet. Oh, you kids, get off my lawn and the internet.
The tens of listeners, get off the internet. You're wasting your time. Yeah, no, absolutely. All right. Here's the thing. I really do. There are obviously going to be a lot of great uses for AI. The problem is not necessarily the great uses. It's the bad actors. It's the manipulation. And I think we can all agree that there is going to be a lot of motivation to get certain people who are going to be friendlier to certain things. If you have underlying interests to get pushed at a political level, there's certainly going to be a tool that's going to be used to get people elected. Finding a way to get people to think for themselves. Once again, I know as crazy as that sounds, to have people think for themselves critically, it's going to be, it's tough sledding. It's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah, we can't outsource critical thinking. That's the last thing we can outsource. I have to admit, over the last 6 months, I have found many, many uses for AI, and it has surprised me because I went from being an AI disbeliever and AI is going to end the world to now believing or feeling that AI can augment in a positive way the function of individuals. It allows me to do things that I don't necessarily have the knowledge or the skill set to do, but I have to drive the ideas, I have to drive the outcome. And this allows folks who are smart enough to come up with the ideas, because fundamentally AI still is not coming up with your ideas, is following up on your ideas and is putting flesh to your ideas. But what scares me is that something like this, you take a bad actor who's smart enough to pose the question to an AI, the AI is going to then take it from there, and it's going to be successful. So it allows those of us who do not have the technical knowledge to accomplish things that otherwise we wouldn't be able to accomplish. So we're going to have a lot more bad actors. It's going to be used for great purpose. I have no doubt that good things will come from it when smart people with good intentions utilize it. But it is also going to allow smart people with bad intentions to utilize it and be quite successful. This is a good example. So get off TikTok. If I accomplish nothing else in my life, if I can get one person to stop using TikTok, and probably more importantly to me, stop sending me fucking videos from TikTok that I have no ability to open up. How about that? Just stop it.
Honestly, I think if somebody just watched one of your TikTok videos, they might stop using TikTok altogether. That might be all it takes. So I think we're halfway.
TikTok videos.
We do. We have TikTok videos.
That's true.
We're
That's
half
true.
the battle. Yeah. If they just watch just one of our videos, they might give up.
Absolutely.
That's all we're asking. Just watch one of our
So-
shitty videos.
All right, don't delete TikTok. Just delete everyone you're following except for us.
There you go.
That's really what I'm
That
asking.
sounds righteous. All right. That was it. All right. Prescription time. You got anything?
You go first.
All right. So I'm going to say limit yourself to one political deepfake per day. That's all. You know, I'm going to recommend just tapering that off slowly. Just slow it down, people. Just one per day.
All right. I'm going to prescribe that America must stop outsourcing its conscience. If a leader can't tell you whether something is wrong, assume it is. Just assume this is wrong. Maybe go with your own conscience. Maybe think it through, point A to point B, come to your own conclusions. Footnotes are not moral absolution. And right now I'm seeing a ton of footnotes tied to some actions that I think most of us, if we can step back from it, would say, ooh, that's just wrong.
Okay. How about this? The moral displacement starter kit. If something terrible happens and you don't want to face it, just blame the nearest flowchart. It's working for institutions. It can work for you. I'd say give it a go, right?
All right. Last one then. Voters must treat digital content like liquor from an unmarked bottle.
For you, what would that actually be? Do you just go for it?
You got to approach it with suspicion. If it burns your brainstem, you got to put it down.
I think that was it for this episode. Thanks to everybody who stuck around. I had a good time. Enjoyed the conversation. I especially enjoyed your Christmas tree back there.
Yeah, ho, ho, ho.
As you are quitting social media, go ahead and smash that subscribe, hit like. Hey, you can share the podcast on your favorite streaming platform and
You can
like
text
it
it.
without being on social media. You can walk over to your neighbor's house,
Show it to
and
them.
write it down on a sticky pad.
Yeah, do that. Sticky notes, everybody. Sticky notes is where we're going.
You can do all these things. But there we go. So awesome. Until next time, let's cue up that music and we're out.